I'm Jeff St Laurent. Welcome to the Tuesday call. Always excited to be here, share some great information, and I also love to really connect with the different people in my audience. And always a reiteration of what I like to tell people is as a coach, your number one objective, it's building an audience. And there's no easy way to build an audience. I will tell you that right off the bat. And with today's topic on how to create killer content. Content in terms of creating that is, let's just call it education. And education-based marketing is the way, at least I believe we do this in our business, is we educate people. They like what we do, they like our energy, they like what we teach, and then they come over, and they willingly come over and they join whatever we have to join, an email list, for whether it's a free report or a Facebook group or whatever it is that where you gather your community, and you can have a few different spots, and then it's just engaging with that audience, and that's how we build a business. And so I love being able to have these live calls to be able to have that that engagement, and even if it's with a handful of people, it's always great to hear people and meet some some voices live with some faces, especially with the visibility challenge in my private Facebook group. Those of you that are doing that, we're creating videos. So if you aren't on that, please check that out. If you want to check out my website, it's sellingcoaching.com. And one of the aspects definitely deserve to check out is the university. So if you go to sellingcoaching.com under the university, you can check out all the educational content that I put out there. And then also right at the top of the my webpage, you'll see a link to the private Facebook group if you want to check that out as well. I also am available for one-on-one mentoring. When you're in that spot, you can always reach me through my website. And then lastly, I just want to say before I get going on this is I've got a really cool program that I'm launching, and it's going to really focusing on helping people transition to a full-time coach, because that's what I do with people. And we focus on the marketing aspect, the selling aspect of it, because that's the vital skill sets that I've done that have kept me afloat and going strong since 2004. And so when we talk about that and going strong, one of the things and that we're going to address today is we're talking about how to create killer content is, when I work with a lot of my mentoring clients, and also, like I said, in the visibility challenge where, right now we're up to, I think it's like 76 coaches that have at least submitted one video and going strong, is a lot of people are challenged, or at least they say like, oh, I'm having trouble creating content. What do I say? What do I say? How does this work? And it's not so much what do I say, but it's a lot of those inner beliefs of, who's going to benefit from this? Is anyone, going to listen to this or watch this, or not believing what they have to say is valuable. And so I'm just going to give you some good tips and ideas. Over the years, I don't know if it's just the way I am or if I'm lucky or whatever it is, but creating content has never been a challenge for me. Over the course of, since 2004, I've written a book, and my first book, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't make it as long, but it was like 351 pages, I think it was, and I could have easily done that in 2 books, but I just can create content. I've done an 8 CD audio course, I've done a 4 CD, a single CD, I've done I can't tell you how many seminars and events. Like I'm overloaded with content, and so I thought, I'm like, what? It would be great if I could, kind of give some tips and strategies on how to start to create this. And I'll start off by saying this, whatever you have to say is valuable. That's like if you forget about anything else and don't take anything else away from this call, like you just got to learn that whatever you say is valuable. And oftentimes the way we learn that is asking people. So in other words, what did you receive? What did you learn? What did you benefit from? What did I say that you connected with? Those phrases. Anything you do, if you're doing live events, if you're doing a phone call like this, if you're doing any like even people, if they comment on something like on social media, you post a video or you write a blog post, and any type of engagement, even if someone just likes it, for instance, like on a Facebook post, one of the best ways to start believing in that what you have to say is valuable is by asking people. Like I said, what did you see? that you liked about it. What did you hear? What did you take away? What did you learn? What are you implementing? I like to use the word specifically. What specifically did you learn? And then they might say something and say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. And if they're willing to engage with you, that's how we learn where we are valuable. And I also recommend, I do that all the time with my coaching clients and my mentoring clients, because more importantly, because I want to understand what's valuable for them. I want to understand what we're doing on a session by session basis, where the value is coming from, where they're receiving value, because now I understand that's how you keep a client. You want to keep them going. You want to work with someone longer, not just because you want to get paid more, because you can help them more. The longer you're working with people, the longer you can help them. And that's what I want to do. I'm with clients for years sometimes. And that's the value of being able to really change someone's life or really help them in their business, is by providing that value. But that's also going to allow us to believe in what we offer and what we have to say is valuable. That's probably the number one piece right there. And again, we get that by asking people. Don't be afraid to ask. That's a big thing. So let's go through some quick ideas on how to start to create the content. And then I'm going to give you some tips on the delivery of it as well, because that's an important piece. So a couple different things. Number one, I would say, situational content. So situational content meaning, when something happens, an event or a situation, basically anything, where there could be a lesson learned or something you can extract from it, basically that's content. So, there's a situation with a spouse, a friend, at the gym, driving your car, at the supermarket, like at the gas station. So I was pumping gas today, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden this song came on, and or all of a sudden I look across the street, and there's this woman, waiting to cross the street with her baby, and no one's stopping. They just kept going by. And I'm making this stuff up right now, but these are situations. These are everyday life situations, and a lot of people don't realize this is content. If some of you are a part of my email list, I know some of you are part of my Facebook group, so you'll get notifications that way. But if you're part of my email list, and if you're not and you want to be, you can just go to my website, sellingcoaching.com, and I've got actually a free report right there on the ultimate startup guide for new coaches. But that will also put you on my email list. And when I send emails out, not all the time, but the majority of the time, I like to open my emails up with a story. Like last Friday, my son was going to a sleepover party with my brother, and my brother has 3 kids, and I was just talking about how excited I was to have him going over there, because I remember when I was younger and when I used to do that, and we used to stay up late and blah blah blah. That's content. And so you can start off with any situation, and then you just got to be able to ask yourself, like, well, what's a lesson here? What did I learn from this, or what could I learn from this? I was out on my ATV riding with my son, my all-terrain vehicle, and we both do that. It's a blast. And we're playing, hide and seek on the trails. So I'm hiding from him. So I'm just up on this hill, like just with my engine off, and it's just all quiet, and I'm waiting. And all of a sudden I just had this moment where, I'm just thinking, I'm like, wow, you know what? In like 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or hopefully, longer than 5 years, but I'm like, my son's going to be grown up, and he's going to be off in college, and maybe I'm still riding and I'm there by myself, and I know I'm gonna miss having him there, playing hide and seek or playing cops and robbers and whatever we do. And so I took that little story, and it's content. It's relating it, and I related that to being having gratitude. Having gratitude for what we have now by thinking about the future when we lose what we have now. And then we go back to the present and we have it, sorry. So that's how we can start to use situational content. And the great part about situational content is there's never a lack for situational content, because heck, I have situational content and I barely ever leave my house because I work from home, So if I have situational content, you definitely do. It's just now being aware of, anything that happens, that could be a story. But, when we tell the story, when I say, embellish the story, it's not lying, but just tell the story like it's something exciting going on, or, you can make pumping gas sound fun. Just, I was pumping gas, and, I was enjoying the music and, playing from my car and looking at all the people or whatever it is. But that's how we can start to use situational content. Another tip for creating killer content would be make a quote your own. You often see, everywhere pretty much people are posting quotes, especially on social media, and it's just like, they're just posting quotes left and right. With that, if you have a quote that you want to post, what I'd say is instead of posting just the quote, is talk about the quote for a second and then give your thoughts and opinions on it. Elaborate on what it means to you from your perspective. Relate it to your audience to create awareness, action, or anything that would make that quote specifically valuable for them. So in other words, like I've done quotes like, quitters never win and winners never quit. And I think Vince Lombardi said that. And I'm like, you know what, Vince, you're wrong. Or Vince Lombardi was wrong, because I'm like, winners always quit. So that was like a take on a quote and basically saying, well, that quote's not true because winners quit all the time. Winners just know what we need to quit and what we need to keep going on. And so that's how you can take quotes and make them your own. And just explain why the quote means something to you, or what happened, the first time you heard it, or throw a challenge out there and relate it back to your audience. And that's how, making quotes, you can start to create your own content. Because I'm a big advocate of creating your own content. A lot of people, a lot of coaches, because they feel initially like, oh, I don't know what I want to say, or I don't know what, I don't know what to get out there for content. They'll start to, they'll see a video that they like, or they'll see a quote or an article that they write, and they'll use that and they'll post that. And that's not a bad thing, right? I'm not going to say that's bad. But what I'd rather see you doing is, I'd rather see you taking maybe an article that you read, or a quote you see, or a video you see, or even a book you read or something like that, and then give your synopsis on it, give a thought, or give your opinion on it, or put it into your own words. You can still credit the quote or the book. You can say, hey, I'm reading this great book called, Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill, the author, talks about this concept called blah, 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 blah. And I believe that's so true because, or I know, this was very influential in my life because this and this happened. And so now I relate this back to you. And so that's how you can take something and now you're putting your own voice on it, as opposed to, saying, hey, this is a great book, or this is a great course I went through, etc. And again, not that that's a bad thing, but if I'm going to be talking about a great book, then, people might go like, oh, I got to go check that book out. But I want people to check you out. I want people to check me out. I want people to go to my website because what I'm saying is insightful and they're connecting with. And that's what I want for you is I don't want them to go buy Think and Grow Rich, even though that's a great book. I want them to go buy your book or your quote, or hire you for a coach. And so that's how you can, make things your own. Another tip for creating killer content is, like, I would just call it what charges you up. So when someone says something, or you see something, you read something that resonates with you, or something pisses you off in one way or another, use it and expand on and create content on it. It's not like a venting or a bitching session or complaining or just ranting just to rant, but teach them something valuable around what you want to see or what you'd like to see happen, or be solution focused. But I like to say, anytime you have a strong emotion, whether it's on, let's say the positive side, like extremely happy, excited, or extremely angry or pissed, anything around that family of emotions, use that. Use that as content. Like, oh my God, I was out the other day and so-and-so, this person cut me off, and all of a sudden I found myself so pissed off in my car, and I'm screaming and yelling, and then I stopped for a second, and I was thinking, geez, why am I so angry? And then I realized, wow, anger is a mask for fear. I just had a fear that, I was going to get in an accident, and I was going to never see my family again, or blah, blah, blah. And so next time you get angry, realize anger is a mask for fear, So do you see how I could just turn that into content, right? And of course, the more you do this, I've been doing this for a while, so I could just start making stuff up and turn it into things, because that's what I've been doing for a long time. But I'm giving you these tips because this is how you start to learn how to create that kind of in that moment stuff. But that's why, take advantage of your emotions, especially the high and the low ones, because there's always a lesson with those. And again, speak to it, and especially the raw content. I mean, that's stuff people can connect with, the raw, even the anger or the frustration. Honestly, like those things are more valuable for building an audience because it shows that you're real, especially as coaches. We go through school and we're so enamored with being coached and what we learned from it, and reading personal development for the first time, and tapping into the power of choice and mindset and abundance and all this great stuff that a lot of people haven't heard before, and really experiencing what it's like. And then we're so like that, and that's great. However, it's very unrelatable to the average person, and so sometimes it's like you show your real side. I'm not saying always be angry and pissed off, but it happens. So when it happens, just be authentic with it, but then show them how you can spin it, show them how you can coach yourself back to, the emotion where you want to go, because that's what we do as coaches, is we help people from a place typically where the things aren't as great, or that they're at the bottom, so to speak, and we can help spin it around through our coaching. So use what charges you. Another idea on how to create killer content is use other content and make it your own. And so I kind of alluded this with the making a quote your own, but this is where if a book or a course or you heard a saying, like I said, elaborate on it and kind of make your own content on it. Share your opinion, make sure you relate it to how it can relate to your audience and how they could use it. And what I found too with that is, because I've already elaborated on that with the quote piece, but a lot of the times, like there's certain books and courses that influence you. Take that content and like start coming up with your own concepts from it. So if there's a certain content, and I'm just going to keep it general, and you call it X, Y, and Z, and that's what the book called it. Can you take that same kind of concept, and instead of calling it X, Y, and Z, because you don't want to copy it, call it A, B, and C? Come up with your own name for it, and come up with your own, spin on it. If you need to, credit the book at any time as influencing what you talked about, absolutely. Give credit where credit's due, but start to come up with your own content, your own concepts, and changing some of the phrases, and come up with your own phrases, your own terminology that makes sense to you. That's an important piece, because that's all branding really is it's like it's your stamp. A brand is a look, an image, it's a feel, and that's why we all have a unique brand. It's just like a fingerprint, because we all bring our uniqueness to it. So everything, I always say, content's always rehashed anyways. I mean, every book on your bookshelf right now or that you'll ever buy, it's been written and said before, and it's just this person's new take on it. So each and every one of you have a new version, a new take on what's already been done. And that's why I'd say, that's why, even more important, say it with your own language, say it with your own energy, through your own experiences. It's all been said and done before, but the way you say it, it might resonate with someone, even if they've heard it a million times before. That's the value of you speaking it. So another thing you can talk about is use stories. And might be similar to situational content, but here's a story. Think of like stories that make you laugh, that maybe stories that have happened to you in the past that elicit any type of emotion, and share that story, and tell the story like someone's there, like you're at your best friend's house, or something just happened, and you want to share that story with your friend or your family or your spouse, and be animated with it. Like I said, embellish it a little bit. We all embellish stories somewhat because we want to make them interesting for people. But if you have a story, that can also lead to a point. But also, another flip to this would be, let's say you have a point or a concept, and let's just say, the power of choice. Let's just, use that as a concept here. And instead of just talking about the power of choice, you can think like, well, can I use a story to highlight this point? What's happened to me, or what story have I read or heard or seen that might be a great example of the power of choice? I'm a big advocate of telling stories, especially when we're doing live events and seminars. Like I always tell people when I mentor with my clients around, and I can help people put together their content and structure their events, because I've done that for so long. And I always tell people the first words out of your mouth, don't let it be, "Hi, I'm Jeff. Well, I'm so excited to be here," and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, just go right into your story. Go right into your opening story. So if you want to highlight a point, share the story. I did an event once, and it was actually based from a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And it was all about how businesses, often they focus on, the what and the how, but they never focus on why they do what they do. And so when you start with why, it just brings a whole new meaning to, their business. So I did an event on that. I was so moved by the book. I kind of took some of those concepts, and it spurred on a lot of my own content as well. And I used some of his concepts in either made them my own, and then I referenced the ones that I used that were his because it was fantastic. And I did a live event, and I wanted to start with why, and I wanted to highlight the point of what we're going to be talking about for the next 90 minutes. So I actually, I went in there and I'm like, what would be a good story to highlight this point? And actually, I read a story, a little while earlier about, someone dropping, like a $50 bill in the toilet, or maybe it was from the book. I don't remember. But anyways, it's like they reached in the toilet and, grabbed the $50 out of the bill, the other $50 bill out of the toilet. And I think the question was like, what if it was a $1 bill? What if it was a, $100 bill? And the whole point is that, you've got to have a big enough reason why you do what you do, right? So instead of just, telling that story, let's just say it was from the book, because I can't remember now, I just kind of twisted it up and I just said, well, I want to put myself in that story. So the first words out of my mouth when I opened for this event was I got up, people clapping, whatever, and I get up there. And the first thing I said was, hey, I just got out of the bathroom and I walked in the bathroom and there was this guy in the stall and the door was open. And as I was walking by, he made this big grunting sound like, oh, and people were in the audience, like they're looking at me all weird. They're like, what is this guy telling? And then, my slide on the PowerPoint, the big screen up there was literally a big picture of a toilet bowl, So everyone's thinking like, what is this guy talking about? And so I'm like, yeah, I walked by this guy and he made this grunting sound. And I'm like, you're right in there? He's like, yeah, I dropped a $50 bill in the toilet. And I'm just like kind of chuckled. And I'm like, huh? So I kind of stood there and watched him to see what he would do. And sure enough, he, reached in the toilet and pulled it out. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, why did you do that? He's like, it's a $50 bill. I'm not going to just flush it down the toilet. And then I went into saying, hey, you've got to have a big enough reason why. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the next 90 minutes. So that was my opening to that. So I went through that story to share with you is that you can open with impact and you can get people's attention. And you can take a story from, wherever you hear it from or see it from, and you can just tell that story, whether it happened to you or whether you saw it or read it, or in some cases, you just put yourself in the story like I did, because I just thought it would be more interesting if it was me. Of course, it didn't happen, but doesn't matter if it happens or not. The point is that you're highlighting a point through that story, and stories engage people. Stories bring people to an emotional place, and that's when you want to elicit some emotion with people. So a common experience, this is another tip for creating content, especially if you understand your audience, think of your audience and ask, as a group, what challenges do they face every day? What common experiences, good or bad, that they have, that we all have, that we can all relate to. And then you can just take that experience and ask yourself, what's one suggestion, tip, or what's some advice, or what's a question I could teach to them that would help? And that's your content. The great part about, when we create our niche, and I like to call it, having your one message for one audience. I often, when I'm working with people to help with mentoring, when I help them, find what their niche is, that one message, a lot of it is just, especially what they've gone through, what they've overcome, what they're maybe still working through. And the reason why that's such a valuable place to focus on and build an audience from is because you've gone through something and you've experienced something, and the great thing is you've overcome it, or you're on that path. And so now you're like, you have this experience, you have your role model, and even the better part is you can speak to them. When you speak about what you've gone through, they'll resonate with it. When you talk to someone, you can empathize because you understand how they feel. And when you start sharing those common experiences, they'll relate to you more. And that's why we really urge you to have that one message for that one audience and speak to that, because it's through those common experiences we'll build trust. I can talk about, for instance, as a mentor coach, helping coaches, create a full-time business and transition to that. I can talk about common experiences because I've been where you are. I've had those beliefs, I've had the challenges, and I've overcome it, and I've gotten to the other side, and I want to assist you there. But I can understand what it's like to be in those situations, and that's an important piece, especially when you deliver that, because now they know that you understand that. But then more importantly is you can take that experience and then, hey, what's a solution I can offer them? What's a question I can ask them? So another thing, how you can create content, another tip is answer questions. So maybe someone in the audience has a question that they ask in a forum, a blog, or a group of yours, any posts. Or if they're not, asking questions, you can ask your audience questions they want answered. Or, maybe you can talk about a certain topic and say, tell me some of your challenges, or what do you need to know about this? And so you can create content by simply answering those questions. So oftentimes, a lot of where my content comes and where I'd suggest as you build the audience, your content comes is starting to understand your audience. Like lately I've been, kind of sneaking and telling people like, hey, I've got a new program I'm offering, etc. And I'm building this program, on helping coaches transition to full-time. I'm building it from understanding my audience of coaches who are looking to transition to full-time. Could I have done it, before I had an audience? Because I had done it before, yes. But I might not have known like the real points to spend more time on because I hadn't, been in with that, and I haven't built the audience, and I hadn't really understood where they're at. So as I do these calls, as I interact with people, as I talk with people, as I mentor with people, I start to understand more and more what they need the most help on. And that's how you can create programs. That's how you can create content, because you're answering those questions. Oftentimes I don't, come Monday when I'm ready to do, promote the Tuesday call and let people know about it. I sit there on Monday and go, okay, what's the call going to be about, And it typically comes from, I'll watch videos in my group, or I'm answering questions with my mentoring clients, and something from that just sparks it. I'm going to go, okay, that's it. That's where I come up with some content. So answer questions. And if you have no questions, ask people what they need, and that becomes your content. Another tip for creating killer content would be ask someone else to do it, right? So if you can't create the content, what about your client? Right? How about asking a client to make a video testimonial, sharing their experience working with you, right? The benefits are huge. Ask them if they're willing to share. Just, let them know, just be off the cuff, tell me what experiences. You could interview somebody, so you could ask them a question and say, hey, I'd love to get your thought on this. Tell me a little bit more about this. Or I know, even with your coaching clients, it's great, highlight them and use them. On my sellingcoaching.com website under the university, if you go under the Tuesday calls, I've done, I think, 4 or 5 calls at this point on basically, the series is kind of like how to turn a blog comment into a paying client, how to turn a question into a paying client, how to turn an email into a paying client. And these are, clients that I've gotten from an email post or a blog post or a comment on a blog or whatever. And so I use that to create content. I went through the thread from the initial contact and all the email interactions up to the complimentary session and then them hiring me. And I kind of like interviewed them, and we had the thread live. And if you haven't seen some of those calls, like those are, I say they're fantastic. I've gotten good feedback on, but those are very valuable calls. You can start to see, I do those so you can start to see how you can get clients and how the process unfolds. You can start to learn the language and how to approach people and how to transition and invite them to the session. But that's content, so it's valuable content. But I use other people to do it, and it's a combination of a lot of things I've spoken about. But that's a great way to start developing that content. So those are some real ideas on how we start to create that content. Let me just go into a little bit about delivering them. And it's also, once you've got your idea, now you can kind of make the content more valuable, keep people either reading or watching, however it's being delivered. with that content. So one real thing is, especially if we're focusing on, let's say, marketing content. Any marketing content, meaning I'm creating videos or writing, for people to attract them, to get them to like my stuff, etc., and benefit from what I'm doing. You've got to think shorter than longer. I mean, obviously, when you get into, like a call like this, but this is a call that is for people that have heard about what I'm doing, or probably in my audience, or if they see that title, they're like, ooh, that they're really attracted to it. But a format like this can be longer. But if you're doing marketing, type of content, you got to think shorter and better. And one of the biggest things is you've got to know what your main point is, whether you're creating videos or written. You've got to think about, what's my one main point. That's it. You can't have multiple points. So keep to that main point and know what it is, and maybe have some bullet points around it. Maybe if you're speaking it out in a video, but stay to that point. It's very easy to get caught up in other ideas as they start to come with you, especially if you're ADD like I am, where I can start going off at one point and then just stuff starts coming to me. On a call like this, it could work if it's relevant, but even here I try and I'm trying to relate everything back to my main point of how to create killer content, and I've always got to relate it back to that. But especially on something shorter, you got to know what it is and stick to it. Another philosophy that I have is I like to have a value-based philosophy. And this is really big. And this is just, it's a value of mine. And I want to share this with you because I feel like this is important. Is, when I produce content, here are a few philosophies I go by. Number one, I like to develop it as if it were paid content and ask, if I were to charge for this, would they pay? So like this call today, I'm thinking, all right, whatever I deliver, I don't want people to just show up. I want people to show up and be like, holy crap, that call was awesome. Like, wow, I've got some really good ideas. Like, I so would have paid for that. Like, I want you hanging up from this phone call going like, I can't believe that was free. Like, why isn't he charging for that? Right? That's my philosophy going into it. And so, like, I always like to give away, like when I say give away your best stuff, is you give away your best stuff. Because there's always more. The thing I like to think about is like, what's more for me in my business is, well, I can talk about this stuff, but the difference is now when you hire me and work with me, whether it's like in a group setting or a one-on-one basis, it's like now I'm implementing this stuff with you. I'm helping you specifically, and we're getting, we're designing it for you, so you can give away this really good stuff. And the same thing with you, with your coaching clients. When they hire you, now you're getting specific on this stuff, but don't be afraid to give away this value. I want it to feel like the stuff should be paid for, and they're getting it for free. And that's how people will come to you, because they value that stuff even more. I'm not saying give everything away for free, but have that philosophy. I want to produce free content that people are shocked that they're getting it for free. I want to produce content that leaves them satisfied and feeling like they got something specific versus general. And maybe it's a pet peeve of mine, but there's just so much general stuff out there that really doesn't tell me anything. Like today I'm trying to get really specific and not just giving you the idea, but also giving you examples on the idea, giving you some questions that you can start to ask yourself so you can use the ideas now. I want to produce content that doesn't leave them hanging and needing more, but rather wanting more. So there's a big difference. Is like, I want to satisfy you. I want to give you the tip that says, where you're like, oh wow, oh, okay, wow, I can do that right now. And now I've satisfied you, and now I want you thinking like, wow, I want more from this person. Like, well, what else do they have? I want to go to their website, sellingcoaching.com. I want to go check this out. I want to join their group. I want to become a part of this because that was really valuable. So you don't leave them hanging versus like you're saying, like, I've got this really cool thing on, how to take your business to the next level, and it's going to teach you how to get clients, and it's going to teach you, how to break through the fears of creating content and blah, blah, blah. And all you got to do is join this and check this out, and for, $20 you can get this. It's like, that doesn't do anything for me. I can still have a content, like a lot of this content that I'm delivering now is going to be based from one of my courses called Video Creation University. It's how to create great content, how to shine on video. right? I'm giving you a lot of the great stuff, but I want to satisfy you. And at the end, I'll say, hey, if you want to purchase this, I'll send you the link. I'll post it when I post the recording, and I'll give you a promotion code. You can buy it for 50% off. But the point is I'm not holding anything back. I don't want you to feel like you have to buy it to get the content. I'm giving you a lot of this content right now, but there's a lot of other stuff in there that I'm not giving you because I can only go through so much. So I want you to be able to say, for instance, with this, like, wow, that stuff was really good. I want to get that because I want more, and I want to have that stuff, and I want to expand upon it. That's the difference. So you can still give away the good stuff, and you can still get people to, become a part of your audience or buy some things, and actually giving them what you have. And that's that value-based philosophy. I want to produce content that doesn't leave them hanging, And I always like to say, give me your best stuff. Don't hold back and save it for a product. Oftentimes what I like to say, like all this content I'm doing now, it's either, like on my Tuesdays calls, it's either, maybe from something I've done. Like I said, this is from like a Video Creation University, one of my products. It might be from a book that I've written, or it might be content that I'm developing that I'm going to put into a product, right? I can put this into a product someday. And so that's why you can give your best stuff. And you've got to find out how you can extract the best stuff from you. Like I'm much better in the moment, for instance. Like if you give me a topic, I could do an hour on that topic if it's something that I'm familiar with, etc. You might be like, okay, I need a topic, but then I need to research and look up things and read a few things on the topic and then kind of make it my own. However, the case is you want to start to understand that for yourself, so then you can start creating it that way. And that's a value-based philosophy. And then you can also turn that into, some of your content is like if you have a product that you're selling or something like that, like with this Video Creation University, what I did, especially with the visibility challenge, in a lot of my videos that I did in my first 30 is I was giving a quick tip from my university. And I was just, satisfying them. I was telling them the tip, how to get rid of the black bars on the side of your video, for instance, how to show your personality on camera. A lot of the things I talk about in the product, but I would tell them what it was. And I'd say, hey, listen, for more great tips like this, you visit my website or check out, my Video Creation University, blah, blah, blah. So it's like you can actually create content from your product. And you're saying like, hey, this is in my book. This is in this course. This is one of the tips I deliver in there. So you give them the tip, and that's the great stuff about it. And then if it's that valuable for them, odds are they're going to click the link, they'll check it out, and then maybe they'll purchase it. That's a great way of marketing that. Again, when we talk about that length piece, this is one of the last pieces I'll start to wrap up with before I open it up for some questions, is, you got to think about the length of your content, especially, I'll talk to videos as well, because, I'm a big advocate of using video, but in terms of length, the more, how about this? The less specific and less detailed the information, the shorter it needs to be. So if I'm just sharing a thought, a philosophy, a quote, a reminder, with not much substance to it, share it, get it done, and end it. If I'm just sharing a quote to share a quote, just say, oh, I had this great quote, and it's, if you don't grow, you die. And it's been very influential in my life. And I hope you can take that and blah, blah, blah. You keep it short. Don't elaborate on it. Just say a bunch of nothing. So the less specific, less detailed, the shorter your content needs to be. The more specific and more detailed, the longer it can be. It doesn't need to be longer, but it can be longer. Like a call like this. We're doing a good, let's say, 45 minutes of content or so. It's longer because there's a lot more specific information, a lot more detailed information. And so just remember, it doesn't have to be longer, but it will hold someone longer because you're telling them on specifics. So that's kind of a good guideline. If you're talking general, get in, get out, end it. They're not going to last that long. If that's more of the fluff side. If you're going into specifics, you can hang on people a little bit longer. So those are a couple tips right there. And lastly, I'll say this: imperfection is welcome. Right? When you're delivering content or even writing content, they can't be perfect, and the videos can't be perfect. The written can't be perfect. There's going to be spelling errors. There's going to be grammatical errors, and I wrote an almost 400-page book, and I actually put a spelling in there purposely, because, and I was actually talking about perfection. And so I'm like, well, there's probably going to be a spelling error at some point. So I purposely put one in there, and I drew attention to it. But it's like, you know what? I can't, keep, reviewing this and having another editor and edit. I'm like, if there's a spelling error, there's a spelling error. It's like, if that's what someone's going to focus on, then they're missing the point of the content, So don't worry about, speaking perfectly and having all that good stuff. And also recognize that with what we do, especially what you might consider, quote, imperfection is actually real. It's a real world. And that's what people resonate with. They resonate with real world. They resonate with just someone being real with them because that's who they are. And when they can connect to you and they can relate to you, they're more likely to follow you and be a part of what you do. And they're more likely to hire you because, like I said, you understand them. So, that's a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to go over and share with you. Before we open it up, what I'll do is like I mentioned, a lot of this content came from one of my courses I offer called Video Creation University. And I put that together for that visibility challenge in my private Facebook group where people are making videos. And I did that specifically because I know, from working with people for so long, they've had a tough time not only creating the content, but then delivering the content. And as you can see from a lot of the stuff I delivered today, this helps you with a lot of that. And in that course, if you're interested in taking a closer look at that, especially if you're looking at videos, since the name of it is Video Creation University, I also dive into the technical aspects in detail in terms of how to make a great looking video and walk you through that so it's very easy, and then also more tips and strategies on how to deliver it effectively, etc. So if you want to check that out, what I'll do is in the link in my private Facebook group and my Facebook page, I'll post a link after the call for those of you that are interested and want to check it out. And there's a little promo code that I'll put in there as well for people in my group, because I always like to give them a little bit of a discount on that stuff. So that would be for my Video Creation University.